Our main story tonight remains the International Monetary Fund, which has said that Britain needs to do more to stimulate the economy, including perhaps a temporary cut in VAT if the situation doesn't get any better. Speaking in London, Christine Lagarde delivered this advice.
As a last resort, if growth is significantly below forecast, despite those policies that I've just mentioned, then fiscal easing would be recommended. But I would certainly not recommend it as a sort of first measure.
But there was some good news for the government when the IMF offered support for its deficit reduction plan. The Chancellor, George Osborne, welcomed the IMF's findings, stating again that Britain has to deal with its debts and the government's fiscal policy is appropriate and an essential part of our road to recovery.
It's clear we're now reaching a critical point for the Eurozone. The Eurozone countries need to stand behind their currency or face up to the prospect of Greek exit, with all the risks that could involve. The British government is doing contingency planning for all potential outcomes. It's our responsibility to ensure that while we work for the best, we prepare for something worse.
Which is a familiar theme, but the Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls also had a familiar comment. He said a new approach was required because the government's deficit plan had failed.
A plan, yes, but it's got to be the right plan. And what's turned out is that George Osborne and David Cameron came back with the wrong plan, and that's why we have a recession now made in Downing Street by their mistakes, which, to be fair to the IMF, they've been warning about for months. Last September, they said, if the economy underperforms, come forward with immediate measures, the kind of things I've been advocating. What's happened since last September? We've gone into recession.
Jonathan Davis is an economist and wealth fund manager. Jonathan, hi.
Hello, Peter.
Interesting, they said maybe we could cut interest rates, which are already pretty low, aren't they?
Well, it's laughable, literally, to go from 0.5% to, say, 0.05%.
Well, how about nothing? Well, maybe they could give us money, lend us money and give us some at the same time. That would be good.
In effect, they're actually doing it because they're printing money, and by doing so, they're effectively handing it out. It makes not the blindest bit of difference because we've had no economic growth in this country for over 5 years.
What about
it doesn't
QE?
work.
What about the good old quantitative easing? Are you impressed by that?
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's what you're talking about, not cutting interest rates.
It's the same. It amounts to the same thing because ultimately it's about putting money into the economy, into the financial system. Do you know what? They've been doing it in Japan for 23 years.
Where does it all go, Jonathan? When they buy up these bonds and things from banks, do the banks just keep it, or what happens to it?
It goes into bankers' pockets. It's called bonuses.
Now, go on. It doesn't all go in bonuses. There's a lot of money involved here.
Add up how much bonuses there's been and add up how much quantitative easing there's been.
Well, I think you're a bit cynical about all this. What about European bonds? Since you're on a cynical path, might as well give you something else to have a go at. Bonds backed by all the Eurozone countries. Any applause for that idea?
Do you know, when are these policymakers and politicians of whatever colour, when are they going to wake up to the fact that you cannot get out of debt by creating more debt? You just can't do it.
But what are we going to do? Just plunge along as we are?
The reality is this economy, the United Kingdom economy, has debt, whether it's in government or household or corporate or bank, of 9 times the size of the economy. Listen, Peter, you cannot grow an economy when you've got debt of that amount.
But you can't pay off debt. Ed Balls keeps saying it, and to some extent he seems to have a point. You can't pay off debt unless you've got some economic growth.
You cannot get growth with 900% of GDP as debt. You cannot get it. Thus, we are in we are in a 20-year depression.
I knew I was going to be depressed by you.
Exactly the same as Japan, 23 years and counting, and we are making the exact same policy errors as the Japanese have been doing for nearly 3 decades. We need to accept reality.
Yeah, but all right. We accept we're going to get poorer, but after that, I think I'd like a little bit of growth. So what can we do?
We have to let the thing collapse. What I mean by that is...
the Eurozone collapse?
Well, it's going to collapse anyway. The UK is going to collapse anyway. The US is going to collapse anyway. That's the economic reality.
Cheery. I thought you were about what do you say when you handle people's wealth? Get it out of Europe or what?
we haven't got a penny in European stocks, that's for sure. Let me please finish my point.
Yeah.
We have to allow banks to fail. We have to allow the stock market to go down. We have to allow asset prices to go down. That way, people can start investing. People can start employing, people can start buying. At the moment, by printing money, we have high inflation. Because we have high inflation, even though it's coming down, we have high inflation, higher cost of living, higher cost of running businesses. No one's investing to get the economy going. Thus, we need to let the thing go down. That's the way we will then get economic growth. This way, final point, this way we have a status quo. We have 20 years of economic stagnation.